There's always only one slot for someone a little darker. Right. A Race of Your Own on YouTube. That's why I started it. It's where inspiration leads to resilience, but I've also learned where resilience leads to inspiration.
She used to be a dancer. She's danced for prolific artists like Prince. And now she's taking ownership of everything that she's done and become an amazing storyteller and has her own podcast. Welcome, Vergi.
Thank you, Eliana.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that.
Of course. You started off dancing. And what was it like to be a dancer, to audition, to, identify as Afro-Latina, as like Caribbean Latino? What was that like for you?
Thank you for that, because it was a journey, but it started out in New York City. I'm a New Yorker, so I started out, dancing in New York City, getting my training there. So, being Afro-Latina was just, it
wasn't that big of a deal.
Wasn't that big of a deal,
over there it's not even Afro-Latino. You're just
Latina, Latina. And so doing music videos and stuff was great. It was, kind of when I started to work with bigger artists, and there's always only one slot for someone a little darker, right? There's always
they got that ethnically ambiguous spot.
Right, the multi-ethnic spot. And so I think it was when I booked a job to work with Prince in Minnesota that, I started to realize like, oh, I'm here. And, he was always just an artist that supported and always hired dancers that were ethnically ambiguous, right, at the time. And so I think for me, by the time I moved out west, that's where I started seeing that there was like a difference and that there was always only one or two spots available. So I just kind of pushed through. It didn't matter to me. That's not what I looked at. I just was like, I'm just here to do the best job I can. And like, and my dancing should hopefully speak for itself, which I think it did. That was the main thing, was just like always just knowing, like leaning on like my training and my talent and knowing that like that's just what I'm going to rely on right now and try not to look at anything else. But
in a way, almost kind of overcompensating, like working, like we always have to do. It's like triple dot your I's, triple cross your T's, and make sure that you show up and that you outdance whoever.
And somebody that I've had, like we talked about in my podcast, which is A Race of Your Own on YouTube. That's why I started it and I titled it the way it is, because you're just in a race of your own. It's where inspiration leads to resilience, but I've also learned where resilience leads to inspiration, because there might be something that you did that you didn't even realize, like, oh, that was that resilient part of me that inspired me to do this next thing, right? And a guest that I had on was like, it's especially people, women of color, we have to be perfect. It's like, if you're gonna do something, you have to be perfect. And so I think having that edge and knowing that, especially dance, and it cultivating me as like an artist, as a creative, just pushed me to be like, I always figured I just have to stay in a race of my own.
You were able to witness a really special moment in New York with Ralph Mercado, who had tremendous contributions to the world getting to know who Celia Cruz was. You were able to be present during a time where Ralphie was getting honored in New York, and there was a street named by him, so now it's called Ralph Mercado Way, right? And so tell us about that. What was it like to be there and to be able to experience that?
I used to be an intern at Ralph Mercado Management, but he had RMM Records. He went by RMM Records, and he had a label where he had Celia Cruz, he had Tito Puente, it was the label that Marc Anthony first dropped his first salsa record, and La India, and Combinación Perfecta. So when you think of all these moments,
that sweet time,
of salsa music, and Latin music was just huge. But before that, he was already managing these acts and bringing them to the world. He used to manage take James Brown to shows, take Aretha Franklin, work with Aretha Franklin. So he was working with a lot of Black American artists at the time. And then he realized that there was this space for Latin music. And he took Latin music to the world. I mean, he was working with Jerry Masucci a lot. He did something with the Muhammad Ali fight in Africa where they took Fania, and so he was working with Fania Records at the time too. So
what a legacy! I got goosebumps listening to it, because all that stuff really shaped what we know Latin music to be today. I think that's part of like the storytelling, the culture preservation, is making sure that we know that these things happened, right? And when they happened, and why they happened, and who was truly behind it. Because too many times we see people get credit for stuff they didn't do.
That part.
You know what I'm saying?
and I think him being an Afro-Latino,
Exactly,
you know, and being at the helm of it and doing these huge concerts across the globe and like places like Madison Square Garden, where if you were going to the Salsa concert, it was a Ralph Mercado production.
Now we arrived to where you are now. So now you have a podcast called Race of Your Own. It's on YouTube.
Yes.
And what are your hopes for that? And what have you kind of been focusing on with that podcast?
I think it's to keep doing this, to keep having these types of conversations, keep having conversations with people in the industry that have made an impact, right? And sometimes they don't get the platform. So for me, it's all about, you know, I don't know how many guests I've had on, even you, where it's like, I'll say their credits and they're like, oh my God, I did that. And it's like, it's just kind of about sitting in that space and like accepting and receiving.
Right.
And being like,
which we don't do often.
We don't do often. Even when we're successful and, you know, doing stuff and whatever. So for me, it's to keep telling these stories, keep establishing that. And I think exploring the stories like with Ralph Mercado and some special stuff that I'm going to have coming out with that is, culturally speaking, I think, putting it somewhere. Yeah. Where if people want to learn something, they can.
They can.
As I keep doing stuff and keep getting recognized, I'm going to continue to tell these stories. I'm Vergi Rodriguez, and I have a podcast called Race of Your Own that's on YouTube under the same name, Race of Your Own, and Instagram, Race of Your Own. Follow me, check it out, subscribe, leave comments. Let me know what else you want to see.
Support.